Is it? There you go.
You don't like the recording? Jump now. Okay, go ahead. You're good.
All right. Let's dive in. So first one I want to talk about is stucco. Other names are EIFS or EIFS, synthetic stucco, or drive-it. Probably heard all those before. So basically, they're all under the brand of EIFS, E-I-F-S, which is exterior insulated foaming system and or finishing system, excuse me. And then you have things like synthetic stucco drive. It's a brand name. It's nothing more than, Craftsman. It's just a very popular brand. But in all case, the synthetic stucco, the newer stuff, can cause problems. It's not really the material itself that's the problem. It's the installation of it. And we kind of are in the perfect storm here in the Northeast where about 10 to 20 years ago, the installers just kind of, as a new product, they start slapping it on, didn't really know what problems it could cause. And so they're finding the issues now, and it's becoming a big deal. It only is a problem when you're pretty much doing it on top of wood framing. Any older homes, the masonry construction, you put stucco on top of, it's really not as big of a deal as it can be on the wood framing. Every inspection we ever go on that we find this stuff, we're always going to recommend review by the expert. In particular, the main reason for that is because we don't have the tools to properly inspect it. To do a proper stucco inspection, it's an invasive type inspection where they normally drill holes, put moisture meters inside behind there, and then they can tell you more of a problem. There are some other thermal imaging type things, but the best and true way is through those invasive drill holes. So again, that's something we'll never do on a standard inspection. We want to leave the house, nice, and normally you have to get the homeowner's permission to get that further evaluation because now you're drilling holes and things like that. So having said that, who's dealt with this and who has the highest stucco repair bill? Anybody?
Nope. I avoided showing the house because there's a $40,000 repair bill and buyer didn't want to go.
Okay. So my personal experience, my cousin owned a home like this, $120,000 was his repair bill. Basically, the problem is it's not really repairable. It's remove it all and then replace. So that's the problem. So what things to look at, right? Obvious things, cracks. Those are very common. The whole point of this is water, right? If water gets in there, it gets trapped and then it causes more problems. So, look around windows, around doors, things like that. That's the most common, the weak spot where it's going to crack. Now, again, you're not the professional. You're not, you're looking at designs of the house and locations and things. But, when you see a house with stucco, red flag should go off right away. All right, we should get this inspected or follow up if they've had an inspection done, get the report. But as you're just kind of walking through, you can see more things like the cracks and you can point out to them, hey, this is really could be a big deal. Some of the stuff that you can't see as much, but the flashing. So this is, again, a very important part, just as much as cracks. You need flashing around the windows, around doors, at the roof lines, where it butts up against unlike surfaces. So here's a couple examples. You can see how they flash around a door, around the window, and at a roof line. And again, nobody can see what's going on. Typically, most of the flashing, if it's done properly, is hidden behind the stucco. So that's why, again, we always recommend further evaluation by the experts because you just can't see it. Nobody can see it. But you should be able to see little, pieces sticking out here and there. That's a good thing. If you can see those, then you have an indication of, okay, this is installed probably better than most. So again, something to take a look at. The weep screed, what they call, is the bottom. All right. So it's basically, think of it as a starter strip. So you can see on the left photo there, there's holes in it basically. So if water gets behind, it gets trapped. So they have an escape mechanism. So the water can get through those holes and drain out properly. The top right, you can see kind of in action. So you have to get up underneath and look to see if it's there. The problem is, as you can see on the bottom photo, is they run the stucco into the dirt. Okay. So again, a very terrible idea. Now the manufacturer's installation instructions say you're not allowed to bury it. It's got to be, even if it was meeting up against a driveway, it's got to be 4 inches above the surface. And that's because that weep screed, the drainage ports have to remain free and clear. So when you get dirt, mulch, it's gonna plug it up and now it's useless. So again, something that we're looking for, something that you guys could maybe look or feel, you put your hand down there, oh, okay, is it there, not there? But here's the problem, right? It's water, okay? Water gets in there and it gets trapped. And then it does whatever it wants to do. As you can see here, it's gonna rot the wood. So sometimes you have to replace the wood. It's gonna mold. You could certainly get mold on the backside of the drywall inside. The insulation gets ruined. So the problem, like I had said, is you have to rip this stuff off to actually even evaluate the problem. And then it's so hard to evaluate because it just keeps going and going down, down, water travels. So you end up having to sometimes replace the wood framing. You've got the drywall inside, the insulation board. Not to mention now you have to put a siding back on. Are you going to put the same stuff back on? It becomes one of those things. So now you could totally change the look of the house if you change to vinyl or whatever you so choose. So that's where your costs can add and add and add. It just snowballs. So I hate sometimes when you see, people say, it's just a crack, let's seal it. You can't see what's going on inside. And remember, inside you have, say, a 2x4, 2x6 wall where the inside, the drywall face is 4-6 inches away from this outside. So you're not going to necessarily see stains on the drywall. Possibly we have in really, really bad cases. Okay, but that means it's already saturated the wood and penetrated 4 to 6 inches into the house, which means the outside framing is just obliterated, basically. Question.
So there's basically no vapor barrier in this installation.
No, typically not. I mean, sometimes they have it, but they put more of a wire mesh type setup, and then they have normally a foam piece as well, but it's not working. It's not working properly. Exactly. So yeah, like I said, the water is the problem, and that's why you need those flashings, those cracks, any little thing that it could get in, and then it gets trapped if you have plugged up weep screeds, and problems arise.
Now that's only with that foam, not original, regular old.
Correct. The old, and again, anything over top of masonry, it's not really, you're not going to mold out your masonry. Now, eventually it could wear out the mortar and brick, but you're talking, years. Exactly. Whereas that the way our new building materials, the wood, the insulation, the drywall just soaks it up and holds it and deteriorates and molds. So you're not really going to get that on the brick or stone.
Not all stucco applications use foam, correct?
Correct.
So I can think of my house, I go vapor barrier, then I go something else, and I went wire mesh possibly, and then went with the water travel in the back, and then the drive it on top of it.
Correct. That's most common, actually. A lot of the builders around here love to just do foam maybe around a window. You'll see the accent piece, it sticks out about maybe an inch. But it doesn't, it's same problems can exist whether you have the foam or not the foam. It's the same problems. Any other questions on stucco before we keep moving? Septics, private septics. Many people have run into issues with those, so some things that you should be, just observing as you're walking through with a client, where is it? What kind is it? There's different kinds, right? The old style where they were, cesspools, the newer kinds where you have drain fields, and now even newer, we have sand mounds. How close is it to the well? So that can be a problem, especially in older homes. Common sense, you don't want your waste next to your supply. All right. Is it accessible to inspect it if you're going to get an inspection done? Are the lids buried? Can you get to it? Can we find the drain field? What kind of drain field? What do we do if the drain field fails? What could be the next step? You have to talk to the township, permits, approvals for replacement, and of course the costs if need be. So we'll go through this a little bit. So basics, of a septic system, a newer type system. Obviously, you have all the plumbing from the house needs to go into it these days. You have the old style homes where you have what they call gray water, maybe the kitchen sink or the laundry, shoots out into the yard. Not really allowed to do that anymore. I know we see it all the time, but you're not supposed to. So all the water comes into your tank. Again, old style systems, the tank also was the drain field where the liquids would run out. Okay, what they call a cesspool. Again, those are no longer allowed. Now, everything's grandfathered in. What's there is probably okay, but they wouldn't let you put that in now. So then you have your tank. And the idea of the tank is the solids are going to settle out to the bottom, and then you'll eventually have a clear-ish liquid in the middle that's allowed to escape. At the top, it's going to be a bunch of foam and greases and things like that. And so, every 3 years, most municipalities are at these days, you're required to pump the tank, and that is to get rid of the solids. Now, a properly functioning septic tank should never have to get pumped. It's supposed to have proper bacteria that eat it up and all that good stuff. However, everybody uses cleaning products these days, and that's just going to kill all the good bacteria, and then you're going to have a full septic system. So that's why they're making everybody pump. So again, you'll have a tank, then you'll have this clear-ish liquid level that's going to go out into a drain field. That's the most important part. The drain field has to allow the liquids to soak away, soaks it down into the ground, and it has to be done fast enough to become clean. If it doesn't soak away fast enough, that's when you get, kind of water to the surface or swampy type grass. Okay. That's if the drain field fails, the system's shot. It's all over. And that's when you have to start getting a new one. And that's where it becomes a big deal with the township. Most municipalities require a minimum of 1 acre to put in a new septic system. Now, they do give you some variances and things on older houses, but if you try to build a lot, you need an acre. Now, the other thing is they most likely, the reason it failed is because the liquid can't go away fast enough, which means if you try to move 20 feet to the left, it's probably not going to soak away fast enough. So then they add what they call sand mounds, those big humps in the yard. They add, 3 feet of dirt, sand, whatever. Okay. So what they're trying to do is create long enough area for the water to soak away. So now it's soaking through sand or dirt, gravel, all that good stuff. So they're trying to provide a longer path for it to clean itself, basically, till it gets into your drinking supplies. So again, now you have to look at the aesthetics of the home. You're throwing this giant sand mound maybe in the front or what have you, and it becomes difficult. So you're fighting with variances on distances on the yards. You have the borough or township. They can be as tough as they want to be. If they want to make you come up to a modern system where you have 2 tanks and then a pump tank and then the drain field. So again, you just see how the snowball of costs keeps going. You're really at their mercy, and land is a big deal. I know for a fact, I know several properties on Pricetown Road where they have no land and septic's failed, and they're saying they're going to put public sewer in, but it's been 20 years. They literally have what they call a holding tank. All your solids, all your liquids just go into one tank, and the pumper comes once a month, twice a month, pumps it out because they can't put in a septic system. So again, these are just things you should be looking at as you're walking through with clients, just identifying, yes, we have a septic system. we can't really verify if it's good or bad looking at it, but we should keep in mind, maybe get the inspection done because it could be a big cost. So here's some of the things that you can do. Try to find the lids, ask, it's on the seller's disclosure typically, but you know how those get filled out, the estates and all that. But try to find the lids, try to find where the well is, how close. So the well and the septic tank must be at least 50 feet apart. And the well and the drain field has to be 100 feet apart. So these are FHA guidelines as well, if you're having to deal with any of that financing. Look for a flat, open, grassy area. That's generally where the drain field is going to be, right? It's of course going to go downhill, most likely, from the tank. So if you can find the lids and you look, kind of downhill, where's a nice open area? You don't want any trees there, none, on the pathway there and in that, flat section. The roots just soak up the moisture. They find it, they crack your pipes, they cause uneven distribution. I just saw a 10-year-old septic system fail because of the roots just got in that quick. And, 10-year-old house, 10-year-old system. It's like, it happens. So, those are things you're looking for. Then you're looking, if once you think you found the drain field, is it soggy? Is it full of lush green grass? Those are bad signs, okay? When we get there for an inspection, we ask, where's the drain field? And the homeowner goes, yeah, it's a nice grassy patch right there. I'm like, that's terrible, because all your nutrients that means you're getting solids and it's not soaking away because all the nutrients, the grass is growing fantastically. Also, it's all mushy and wet. That's not a good thing. So again, I know you're not going to spend a lot of time, charting the septic as you're there for a showing, but those are little things that you can keep an eye on. Okay, there it is. Does it look normal or does it stand out? It shouldn't stand out. Okay. Ask for any kind of pumping records. Like I said, most municipalities require a service every 3 years is general, but they should be able to provide that to you, whether it's the township, the pumping company, or the owners. Good.
The well to the drain field, what was that?
100 feet.
Minimum 100.
Yeah. And so I know that's going to get dicey. You're not going to step it off. It's hard to find. You're not going to find the drain field, but a general idea. If you can sit, well sitting right here, or it's in the pathway towards the drain field, you're going to have issues. Then you definitely want to get water tests, okay? Because that's the problem. It's bacteria is going to find its way back into the well.
You know if there's any grant
Good question. FHA does whatever they want. Okay, we have seen it, but for the most part, no, they're more difficult. And what we've found is you end up probably drilling a new well is the cheapest route. Move the well rather than the septic.
I had that a few years back. I sold an 18-something farmhouse. The freaking well was 10 feet. It was like 90 feet from the freaking drain field, and we had to move it 10 feet to drill a new well.
Yep, it happens. Unfortunately, yeah, you're at their mercy.
The only reason why I asked that is because I just had a house for how close the drain field was to that.
Right, right. Yeah, FHA is tough. Again, conventional you can get around a lot more.
BA, so I think BA is 75 feet.
Okay, all right, good.
Those are 100.
Any other septic questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious that just as we walk in, is there I'm just looking for like a major plumbing line going outside to give us an idea of direction and just kind of guess where it might be.
Exactly.
For telltale signs.
Exactly. Yeah. So find the big, normally 3-inch, sometimes 4-inch pipe. Which side of the basement is it? Sometimes it goes through. Well, sometimes it goes through the floor, and you just don't know. But also in the yard should be some clean outs or viewing ports, so you could see a pipe or two, typically two stacked next to each other. And then, like I said, you're looking for that big concrete lid should be about 3 feet. Now, most people bury them. That's the problem. Okay, but yeah, you're trying to find it from the basement out.
Do you perform septic inspection?
We no longer do. We did. We were PSMA certified, but it's hard work, so we just stay away.
The only reason I ask that is because I know that sometimes depending on the type of test, it can actually take a good system and actually make it fail.
So yes and no. That's a common, kind of myth, I'll say, in our industry. So what you're probably referring to is a hydraulic load test.
Yeah.
And what that's referring to, whenever you have a vacant house, the standards think that the system isn't working properly. And so they want to introduce water for basically the amount of bedrooms or occupants of the home. And they want to make sure they'll do it 2 days. They'll dump water in the first day, see if it soaks away, come back, dump water again, make sure that it's soaking away properly. So when people say that it breaks your system, it's just not true, because it's literally designed off of a single daily use of the occupants that the home is designed for. Okay, so if it can't handle that, it's failing. And so it was gonna fail. Again, that's one of those things. Oh, there was 2 older people living in the house. Now you're bringing a family of 6 in.
Right.
That's a huge difference on a septic. But whatever the house was designed for, so number of bedrooms, basically, that's what the system was designed for. And so if it can't handle that, it was broken, whether he put it down or the homeowner does in a week. So yeah, but good question.
So the hydraulic loads are done, if a vacant house is defined as not lived in for 7 days.
Correct.
It's
It's quick.
7
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
So you go on vacation,
Yep.
order your test to come back big and live in it for a day, because it's 7 days.
Yeah, we've seen those fights. It's not even unoccupied, like you said, or people do I go to Florida, go on vacation, and they hammer them. So, but those are things as realtors you can help, avoid, right? The more that you study, more that those rules, be like, okay, well, we can't have the septic inspection until you're home, or what have you. Make sure, or someone to live there, right? Yeah, just say that a relative's been staying there, or whatever you got to do to make it, quote, occupied. You want to avoid that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I guess the other thing is looking at when did they put an addition on, or add a bedroom, or do something construction wise.
That's always
With the timing
yes.
of when the septic.
No one ever updates the septic when they update. So that's one of those permitting questions. Most people, they add a bedroom and don't permit it. Well, your septic now is probably undersized.
Or they had a bathroom.
Yeah.
Or a half bath.
Correct.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yep. Yeah. So it's all stuff you're going to encounter. Are you going to, kick and scream that they added a bedroom, now septic's not updated? No, but you have to, present it to your clients. Be like, well, you need to get a septic inspected because of this is what we're seeing, that kind of deal. And again, a septic system repair or replacement, we see them anywhere from, $15,000 to $40,000. It can be a big deal. To maybe you can't even do it. Like I said, some of those Pricetown Road homes, you cannot do it. So again, those are big expenses that you don't want to call back in a month, a year, be like, you didn't tell me my septic's broken. Anything else on septic before we move on? So some of the minor things, electrical, again, these aren't going to be nearly as expensive as, a $40,000 potential septic repair. But some of the things you should be looking into, what kind of wiring, knob and tube. I'm sure you're probably all familiar with it. Bottom left corner there, it's the old style. So you can see some of the knobs, and then where it goes through a joist are the tubes. Okay, the problem with that stuff is it's basically a 2-wire system. So modern electrical has a black wire, a white wire, and a bare or a ground, what they call. Those obviously only have 2. It's the black and the white. So it's inherently less safe because that ground is there for protection. The other thing is it's very old and it's very brittle, and the coatings wear out, as well as their splices. They splice it all over the place. So the problem, it doesn't make sense. You don't go from outlet to outlet to outlet. They go from like one outlet to, we'll throw a switch in, back to an outlet, then to the light fixture. It just branches like crazy. It's like a spider web. It makes no sense. It's just everywhere. So trying to replace a circuit becomes difficult because you end up having to do everything. What else? What type of outlets? Okay, are they 2-prong or 3-prong? So again, going back to the 2-prong is where you have the older wiring. Okay, now that's the most difficult thing of the house for electric to replace is wiring of outlets. Because you got to run a brand new wire from the panel to said appliance, said electrical outlet. When you're going through 2 stories, it's very difficult unless you're ripping out ceilings, ripping up the floor. So yeah, if the house is under construction, it's not too bad. But most homeowners, when they're buying, aren't ready to rip out walls and things like that. So that's the most difficult thing. Some of the other ones, a cracked service entrance cable. So the wire coming in from the house, you can see a picture of that. Obviously most people can see that water and electric don't mix. Okay, so you can see if it's starting to crack or fray. Water will get in there. It will get to the panels. It will rust things out and cause problems. But like I said, the biggest electrical thing is the knob and tube. There's several electric insurance companies that won't offer insurance. I've seen them just flat out denied because of knob and tube wiring. So most commonly what we see is electricians will replace what they can get at, especially in the basement. They'll run brand new wires from the panel, but then where it turns up into the house, up through the walls, you can see a junction box and the 2 legs going up. So you got to be careful on saying, yeah, there's no knob and tube in the house when it's still in the walls and ceilings you just haven't gotten to. Now, for lighting circuits, it's generally okay. It's not gonna burn the house down. Now, obviously, anything can go wrong. Okay, but we're not, as inspectors, we're not going, oh, we see we got to rip it out. We don't have as big of a problem as, like I said, insurance companies. And really, it's about outlets. So we spot check outlets. We're testing for the grounding and things like that. So if ever you have outlets that are ungrounded or 2-prong, we do what we call selectively upgrading. Anywhere they know they're going to place a 3-prong corded, appliance, it's important to have a 3-prong grounded outlet. So computers, TVs, refrigerators, yeah, all that good stuff. You want a 3-prong grounded outlet. Lamps, chargers, things like that, not a problem. Okay, so that's why we say selectively upgrade where you can. Now the insurance company, like I said, they have a different issue, but panels, there's 2 kind of blacklisted panels. On the left is a Zinsco. Okay, every time we see that, we always recommend review by electrician, and I haven't heard of one that they've kept. Okay, the connections in the back are typically the problem, and they're sometimes the faulty. It doesn't trip properly. So electricians always recommend replacing of a panel. The other one is the Federal Pacific stab lock. So same concerns. Now the stab lock, we won't even try to take the covers off. You kind of see on this picture, but the breaker overhangs the cover. And so when you try to take the cover off, it literally pulls breakers out because the connection in the back is bad as well. And we've had, we've heard stories of inspectors that have ruined panels because they pull them out and they can't get the breakers back in. And, it's just a liability. So we don't even take it out, take the cover off all those and recommend review, and just they replace it every time. Nowadays, the newer ones that are becoming antiquated are the ITE pushmatics, those push buttons ones where you push the breaker in and out instead of like a switch. Yeah. Those have gone out of manufacturing. They're no longer making them, so getting parts is a lot more difficult. And again, their failure rate is starting to increase. So we don't call those out quite yet as a blacklist, but you want to keep an eye on those. They're just outdated. Now, the good news is, like, you have to replace a panel and maybe a service entrance cable. You're talking 1,000, 2,000, 2,500 maybe for the whole, thing. So that's not terrible. But if you go to try to replace all your branch wiring, all your old knob and tube, you could be 5,000 to 10,000, depending on, where all you try to run outlets. If you have to rip up all new flooring or ceilings, it becomes a much, much bigger deal. Any other electrical questions?
Yes, in your reports on receptacles, reverse polarization.
Okay.
What is it?
Okay. So if anyone's ever wired an outlet, okay, you have gold screws and you have silver screws. So the black wire is supposed to go on gold, the white wire goes on the silver screws. In that case, they had it swapped. Okay, what we call hot neutral reversed. Okay, it can cause something to literally run backwards. We've seen, vacuum cleaner blow instead of suck it up. So it's also unsafe is the bottom line. But
It's an easy solution.
very easy solution. Like I said, turn the power off, you swap the two wires, put it back, done. Like you said, it's generally a localized, it's just that outlet. It's not going to make the whole circuit typically incorrect or unsafe.
GCFI, what's the regulation as far as distance to water?
6 feet is the code requirement. So kitchens and baths within 6 feet of water. Now, you obviously have wet bars and other things. Nowadays, the new codes, okay, they have a lot more. Garages, exteriors, all that stuff. Now, we don't come into an old house and say, you got to put all these in. We, again, say selectively upgrade. There's newer, safer technology out there. We would recommend upgrading these to GFCI outlets. Kitchens and baths, we draw a line, say, you got to do it. It's just too easy, and for safety, it's a big deal. But 6 feet of water is the general rule of thumb.
So if I have a house that has no ground, but I have all three-pronged septic solutions.
So, good point. You're not allowed to upgrade an outlet from a 2-prong to a 3-prong without having the ground. Okay, so that's one thing that we are checking for, that grounding. And so if they've done that, it's a big deal because you've tricked somebody into thinking this is a 3-prong safe outlet, and it's not. The solution, like I said, run a new wire, or you're now allowed to put in a GFCI as a replacement. And you have to, has a little sticker you have to put on that says no equipment ground. This, according to the code officials, that's what they want to see. So yes, you can get around rewiring an entire house by putting in a GFCI in every single outlet.
Or can I just go and take the 3-prong out and put a 2-prong in?
Yes, you can.
Can I leave the 3-prong in and put a label on, which is blue and white, that says non-ground refill?
Typically, yes. You have that no equipment ground sticker, correct.
That goes on the plate. So there's you don't have to have your buyers freak out.
Correct.
Okay. It's not, their house isn't going to burn down because I don't have ground. It's just older technology. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to rewire the whole house. Same with the knob and tube. They usually just do the basement and then forget the rest of the house. But your receptacles, you can just take the 3-prong out, put a 2-prong in, put the GCFI in each one of those circuits, one per circuit.
If you're first in line, yes. Right. It'll protect the rest.
One per circuit if you're first in line. Or it's a blue and white sticker that you put on the faceplate that says non-grounded, non-equipment ground receptacle. So there's easy fixes that the seller can opt to use. If you ask them to fix it, they can opt to fix it that way. And as a buyer, you've got to accept it if you haven't declared how you want it fixed. So there's some areas in that way on receptacles. Electrical is my pet peeve on inspection.
Sure. Yeah, so electrical gets a lot of letters in our reports, but it's generally the smallest dollar amount. Like you said, we have to write it's technically unsafe to do A, B, and C, but to fix it is, pennies. Yeah, we have open electrical box. Well, a cover 50 cents. Correct. So that's a good point. And that brings up another good point. I'm sure you guys have had discussions, but is how you ask sellers to fix it. Okay, the negotiation after you get our report. Like you said, you typically have options. You can ask them to fix it, ask them for money to fix it later, or you can have, say that you want to pick the contractor, that's going to do the fix. So those are big deals. Sometimes those are bigger deals than the actual problem, because like he said, you could ask them to quote fix it, and they can put in something that you're just not happy with,
Right.
but it passes the, code or whatever you're going for. It makes the inspector happy. Okay. But if you're looking for, like you said, if you want a 3-prong grounded outlet, but they just put a sticker on it, you're not going to be happy. Okay. So you have to be careful on how you reply to inspections. Okay.
Couple questions. How do you identify if it's a 100 amp or 200 amp panel? Because I've always looked for like stampings, but some of them don't have it, so I don't quite know how to read it.
So there's the three things, okay? The size of the service entrance cable. If I can go back. So the thickness on the right photo, those are 100 amps, okay? 200 literally double the size of that. So by looking at the size of the outside cable, now obviously it takes experience, you just kind of learn. Number 2 is on the main breaker must have a number on it. So that'll say 100, 200, sometimes 150 or what have you. And then 3rd is the actual panel, the cover should have on the sticker should say this is rated for 100 amps or 150 amps. Now, when declaring a house has X amount of amps, you have to use the smallest one. So you could have a 200 amp sized wire and a 200 amp breaker, but the panel says it's rated for 60, you have a 60 amp service. So they all 3 have to kind of go together. Okay. And you're supposed to use the smallest one. Now, again, no one's going to say, oh, well, you didn't tell me the size of the wire is only 100, but everything else is 200. Like, you don't know. I get that. But obviously it's for marketing purposes. You don't want to overstate or understate the amperage, but that's what you're looking at, those 3 things.
Is there a red flag if you start seeing a lot of sub panels? Maybe they're feeding into the garage. Now the garage has a bunch of stuff in it.
I wouldn't say a red flag. The problem with those is typically, so sub panels have to be wired differently than main panels. And there's several safety issues inside of those that most times homeowners don't know. And most times the sub panels are done by homeowners or Uncle Joe, and so that's where there's more of a problem potential. But having sub panels is not a problem per se. It's just who did it, and does it look, professional or organized. Fuse boxes are another one. Again, that's just outdated equipment. That's where you run into, it's just not ideal. Yeah. Is it a problem? Not necessarily, but again, with fuses, most commonly people get tired of replacing them, so they put in too big of ones, what we call overfusing, and now it's unsafe. So that's typically kind of the process. The materials itself aren't bad. It's how the occupants are using.
The old penny trick.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really bad.
Any more electrical questions, comments? Okay. All right, let's get into drainage. Again, one of the bigger ones, water is the #1 problem of the house. You probably all know that. So, when you're walking around, here's some of the things you should be looking for. What's the slope of the property? You're always going to be the direction of the development. Hopefully you're at the top, not at the bottom. Are there gutters there? Are they working properly? Are they hanging down? Are they just, torn? All that good stuff. Then from the gutters down, where do the downspouts go? Do they just have a splash block right next to the house? Do they have a splash block? Sometimes they just go right there. Do they go to an underground pipe? Where do we think the underground pipe is? Does it go through a bunch of trees? Is it going to be clogged? Is it useless? Then you get down in the basement. Okay, does it stink? Does it smell? Are there stains on the walls? Obviously, people are looking for water, but you're looking for the exterior walls. Okay. Was it freshly painted? That's everyone's trick. Get some dry lock, done. I don't have a water problem. Yeah, you just painted it, you covered it up, but it's going to bleed through the next rainstorm. Is there a dewatering system? I'm sure you've probably seen some of those. We'll go through that in detail. Do they have a known issue that they've spent quite a few $1,000s on? Is there a sump pump? Is there a dehumidifier? All those little things, start to paint a picture of, do I have a water problem or not? Okay, so just because they have a dehumidifier doesn't mean they have a water problem. We recommend running those regardless. But those are some of the things that we look for. We look in detail, but as you're just quickly walking through, be like, okay, I see staining, I see the dewatering system. Now we need to start asking some more questions. What we always tell people, start outside. Start with the drainage and the gutters. Make sure that you have a proper slope away. The appropriate slope is 12.2. So every 12 inches away from the house, it should drop 2 inches. That should be your standard grading. Okay. So there's instances where you just can't achieve that. You're on the hill and the neighbors are higher and they're just dumping their water towards you. So there's other solutions, and that's when you start getting into, like you said, the dewatering systems. But we tell people start outside. So here you can see, you got water ponding, especially up against the house. That's just gonna be a problem. If it's not getting into the basement, it's gonna erode the foundation over time. It's just not good. Again, out in the yard, you have some ponding. We want to see that starting at least 10 feet away from the house. If that's within 10 feet of the house, you're gonna have water problems. Granted, you're not going to be able to walk through a house on a stormy, rainy day. Those are the best days to inspect. We love it. Okay. But you're going to go on a nice sunny day and you're not going to see that. Okay. But those are things that you're trying to look for signs. You can see like dead grass kind of, where it's been eroded away or things like that. Let's talk about dewatering systems and what they do. So this is kind of a good illustration of it. So what they typically do is they'll jackhammer out about a foot of concrete all the way around the perimeter, or whatever they can get to. And then they dig this trench, and they fill the trench there with a pipe and then crushed stone around it. So the pipe has holes in it, you can kind of see. So that's going to allow any water that's down there to get into the pipe. They typically run that to a sump pump, and that gets pumped out. So those are fantastic for groundwater, as if it were to rise up from underneath. So all new construction, they already do this. Okay, so they bury that pipe, goes to a sump so they can get it out. These dewatering systems is after the fact, and you can see that black, it's called a Z flash. It goes up the wall, then it comes down and over into the stone bed and back down. So what it's designed to do is any water that would push through the walls, the block walls, concrete walls, it'll drip down. It gets behind that little waffle board, that black plastic, gets down into the pipe and then goes away. So what they will guarantee is you won't have any water run across your floor. Okay, that's great, but you're still getting the water into the house. Okay, you're allowing it in to pump it back out. All right, so I'm not big fans of them. They serve a purpose, I get that. But like we said, start outside. You want to spend $8,000-10,000 on a dewatering system, regrade outside. Put some drainage pipes outside. Don't jack up your basement. Okay, so there are instances where these are needed, but I don't love them, as you can tell. So, but that's something you want to be looking at. Do we see this fresh concrete? It might be old, but you see a jackhammered line all the way around the perimeter. That's what's going on. They had a water problem. Now, some people get sold. You have some owners that had that one storm. We've had that one storm a couple of times where everyone gets water, and then they go and put these big systems in that probably aren't needed. Okay. But here's some of the obvious, water staining. So block walls in particular, blocks more porous than poured concrete. You're gonna see staining. You're gonna see that white powdery stuff. It's what they call efflorescence. Okay, every block house has it. Okay, so you got to be cautious on. Oh, we got a water problem. Well, look at more stains. Is it running across the floor? Okay, is it building up? Like, how big is the white powder stuff? Is it just like a little flake, or is it starting to get inches to it? Right, that tells you how much buildup. Obviously, people finish their basements, so you got finished materials, wood, drywall, paneling. Look at the bottom rows of those. They soak up water so quick you'll see staining. Okay, so when you go down, you're smelling things, and you look, oh, there's some water stains. We got a water problem. Okay, how big is it? You have to determine that. But those are and kid you not, those are always the spots behind the sofa, behind the TV. Homeowners, they say they're not hiding it, but they hide it, right? They know it's there. They quote forget about it, but they put their stuff in front of it. So I know you're not in there moving things and checking things, but take a nice lap around the perimeter at the bottom, have a good look.
I'll tell you what, you walk in either of them basements, you're gonna smell it when you hit halfway down the
Typically,
stairs.
yeah, typically. So
Just real quick, back, you had a picture of the standing water outside. What if you inspected it in the winter?
well, so again, you'll see. Yeah, good question. So we're looking at like erosion, is there low spots where water's ponding? You can tell by how the grass is grown. You have kind of like dead spots, and sometimes you'll see some ice, or what have you, if it's that kind of winter. But and you'll see sometimes with snow, like if we have a coat of snow, you can see some of the dips in elevation. Now, again, could be wind blowing, different things happen, but those are what we're trying to see. You just do the best you can with the elements you have. Yeah, good question. I think those are the highlights on kind of drainage. Any specific questions, dewatering systems, anything like that? So like I said, the big takeaway is the outside. Look at how things are pitched. Do the gutters make sense? The downspouts make sense? Are they going away? We see a lot. They love to do in the front yard. They put this big mulch bed, but the downspouts on the house side of it, where's it going to go? It's got nowhere to go but in or down. So getting that out of there is very important.
Do you expect anything like infiltration trenches or basements or anything like that?
So we can only inspect what we can see. So most of that stuff is hard to see, the filter type stuff. Those are typically what we're recommending installing, like outside if there's setting up drains and drainage pipe. Not lots of things we can't see. Those are good. Those are all questions that you should try to be following up with the owners. Be like, hey, I see a drain here. Is there maintenance to that? Is there a filtration system we have to keep involved? All those kind of things. Yeah. Okay, roofing. What material is it? How much slope does it have? All the documentation is ideal. If you can ask them how old it is, I get it. People don't know. It's tough. We're all playing the same game, trying to, guess. Oh, does this have 5 years, 10 years? We all play that game. But what you're looking for are the signs of the age, right? So cracking, curling, the gaps widening, cupping. On shingles, right? We're talking about shingles. Most homes have shingles. Obviously, you have some metal roofs that you're looking for nails that are missing or rust, holes. The best roofing is typically rubber. Okay, especially for flat applications, you want a rubber, and then metal's good, and then you go to the rolled asphalt. Okay, so there's different types of materials that have longer lives. Like the rubber could go 50 years, the metal again 50 to 100 if you keep it painted up, but the asphalt eventually just wears out. So again, there's many different levels of asphalt. You can get the rolled, which is about 10 to 12 years. You can get a standard asphalt shingles about 20, architectural 30 to 50, depending on what style, what size. So there's a lot to roofing, and no one expects you to, become a roofer, but you can look at a roof. You can see some of these things. See how it's curling and just disintegrating on the left. The cracking, again, I don't expect you to get up on the roof and have a good look at it. That's not part of your jobs, but you get to a window, you can look at the porch roof. Maybe you just see a 1 foot section of the main roof. You can see some cracks starting to form, okay? That's the problem, okay? As it cracks and the sun hits it and it just accelerates the process. Having a crack doesn't make the roof bad. It just tells you it's about ready to be done. So when you're telling buyers like, oh, this could see another 5 years, but start planning. Okay. And that's what we're telling people. It's like, yeah, I'm up in the attic. It's not leaking. I can see there's no stains, but this roof has 2 years max on it. You need to start budgeting because that's how it's going to go. I get it. These are difficult negotiating. Okay. When you have something at the end of its useful life is a difficult negotiation. You guys can probably speak better than I could how it gets handled, but homeowner is going to say it's not leaking, and you're going to say, but it's about to, and so you play this game. So a lot of times they ask for roofers to give like a cert guarantees. Okay, this is going to last for 2 years. A lot of the banks like to ask for that kind of stuff. So we don't provide anything like that. Again, talk to a roofer, but you need to just prepare your clients just when you start to learn how old the roof is. Like, okay, you got about 5, maybe 10, or less than 5 years. Just so you can start educating them.
It's a common question from insurance companies. What's the age of the roof?
Correct. Right. Yeah, they always ask me that. We get those when we introduce at an inspection. What questions or concerns do you have? And they go through their insurance list. How much amperage? How long? How old's the roof and stuff? It's like, if it had a date on it, I tell you, it doesn't. Right? That's the trick. You don't know with roofs. So I'm always asking, if I get a chance to talk to the homeowner, that's my first question. Do you know the age of the roof? And they hee-haw, and I don't remember, but it's not more than 5, but less than 10, stuff like that. So, and I just try to verify that, see what I'm looking at, if it makes sense to what they're telling me. And sometimes not, sometimes, they try to blow smoke up your nose. They tell you, oh, I replaced it 3 years ago. It's like, no, you patched it 3 years ago. That's not a replacement. Okay. But those are the kind of questions. Obviously, you have the seller's disclosure to help with some of that, but especially when we start finding, cracking and things, you ask more pointed questions. They'll say, we had a repair done. What got done? Don't just tell me you repaired it. What does that mean? How much got repaired? Did any get replaced? All that good stuff. Any other roofing questions? Yeah.
Is there a certain number of years where you start to see the granules coming off as an indication of age, or is that too broad?
So anytime, what we call loss of aggregate, the stones start to fall off. Again, that's similar to cracking. When you start seeing that and the pitting starting to form, it's older, probably in the neighborhood of 18 years old. Is when that starts.
When you pressure wash your roof, you need 5 years.
Do not pressure wash it.
Well, those black stains are idiots.
So zinc, okay, zinc strips. All right, zinc strips kill moss and the mildew. They mount basically on the peak of the roof, and as it rains, it kind of washes it for you. So that's what we recommend for those people that's like, oh, it looks terrible, or you have that, those stains and stuff. Start with something like that rather than, like you said, trying to pressure wash it. We've seen it. Oh yeah, we've seen it. It's great. People are brushing. It's like you just ruined your roof. Just ruined your roof.
It looks good, but you ruined it.
But you
You
ruined it.
look good when you put a new one on it.
Yes, exactly. All right, structure. Obviously a big one. Okay, but those are pretty glaring. Most people can see. Do you have a big crack in your basement walls? Down in the crawl space, you can see if what kind of footings. Like, are you sitting on footings in a crawl space, or they just put it on the dirt? That's a problem. Okay, the dirt's going to settle over time. You need some concrete footings. Go below frost. Can you see the floor joists? Are they cracked? Are they twisted? Are they missing? Are they cut? Things like that. Obviously, I don't expect you to walk through each one and analyze, but you get a general feel for the house, especially the older houses. You're going to have some bowing of them, twisting of them, some old cracks. You just kind of have to analyze yourself. Like, is this a significant crack? Should I get an expert out here? Or, you chalk this up to it's an older house. You should know what you're buying. This is how an older house works. What kind of walls? You have the block walls that have moisture potential issues. You have concrete walls. concrete will crack. You will always get hairline cracks at a minimum. When it cures, it shrinks, it's gonna crack. Did it open up? Is there an epoxy injection? Those are the best kind of methods of fixing it. Do they use the carbon fiber straps to fix the repair? So all those little things you're looking at. Horizontal cracks, that's the big one. Okay, especially in a block wall. What a horizontal crack is telling you, there's moisture, water outside, it's building up pressure and it's pushing on the wall. Okay, that's when you get a horizontal crack. A lot of times you'll see what we call step cracks, where it follows this, the blocks down at a zigzag. Normal, okay, not desirable, but expected. Most homes have something like that. Stems from a window, a door, something like that. But when you start to get the horizontal, that's when you definitely want to pay attention and you probably need a structural engineer at that point. Because what happens is the block starts to get pushed in, what they call shearing, and you start to get a lip or a ledge where it starts to push, and now you need to fix it. And it can be a big deal. There's a lot of fixes, but we won't get into all that. So some more with the structure. Sloping floors upstairs. Again, 100-year-old houses we walk into all the time. They're not going to be perfectly level and straight anymore. You're going to have some slopiness, but how bad is it? Is it like really bad when you're walking? Is it a concern? And it becomes difficult because you can't see, if you're on the second floor, you can't see the new joists. You don't know what's going on. So you're trying to go down to the basement and see, okay, this old joist has some sag. That's probably what's causing it. Can we just put a new one up, a sister next to it, or what have you, to fix the problem? So structure is important, but it's pretty obvious to most people. Again, where you run into issues of finished basements and stuff like that, where you just can't see. Now you really got to go, okay, this floor is sloping. This door doesn't fit anymore. You have the top is way off. That can be problems. It means the house might have shifted, settled and then you can't diagnose it properly in the basement. It becomes a big deal. And the biggest question we get asked at every inspection is, can we take this wall out? Right? So we're looking for that kind of stuff. Oh, we have a nice open floor plan. Yeah, it wasn't built that way. Okay. I know what they were built like in the 80s and stuff. So, we're always looking at that kind of stuff. Does it look like there's a header properly, or they just blow some walls out? It doesn't make it right. It looks great, but it doesn't always make it right. So just little things like that you can keep an eye on. Again, you're not expected to be the profession and say, oh, wow, well, they took a wall out here and we got it, it's perfectly fine or not fine. Might have to ask for professional's opinion. So those are kind of our big ones. I'll open up to some more questions. What you should walk away with is stucco and septics are your big ones, okay? Definitely want to get those inspected, especially I understand the market, but those can really come back to bite you. Okay, they 20, 30, 40, like I said, I've seen $120,000 repairs. So that's significant. Some of the other things, like I said, electrical and things can get repaired at a reasonable rate normally. Drainage can be another big one. So some things to look for in your walkthroughs. Go ahead.
Do you do much in the way of HVAC systems?
I mean, we inspect them, but the nice thing about the HVAC system is they're fixable. You just kind of can put in a new system. There's really not a lot you're going to be able to walk into and look at and say, that's broken. You got to take some covers off. You got to kind of get in there more. So HVAC for you guys, HVAC is probably not something you're going to study a whole lot about.
So as part of your inspection, I have a furnace, gas, or I have a furnace, whatever. Do you invasively take off the covers, do heat measurements, do those?
Yes and no. So what we're allowed to do is, yes, take the outside covers off. So we will expose the internals. We'll see the burners. We'll see if there's rust and things like that. We are definitely firing the equipment up. We want to listen to it run. We're going to see that it has For gas, you have a nice blue flame. That's what we're looking for. If it turns red, orange, there's problems. We're checking, yes, the registers, making sure heat's coming out, cooling just the opposite. We're measuring, where it has to drop 15 degrees is what we're looking for cooling. So if it's 70, we want to see a 55-degree temperature. So we're inspecting HVAC stuff, but there's not much you're going to do as, like I said, on a quick showing that's going to tell you a whole lot. I mean, you can obviously look at system and go, oh, that's pretty old looking. You might want to think about possibly replacing that. But like I said, the good part is it's usually replaceable. A new heating system could be $8,000-$10,000, but most people can look at a system and just say if it's old or not from a quick walkthrough.
I have a question.
Sure.
It's a weird question. I know, I assume you have to have some sort of certification to be a home inspector.
Yes.
Okay. In order to get that certification, what do you have to do to get it? And what kind of experience do you have to have? Is there schooling involved? And also, is there continued education, just like we have to do with our
Sure. Good question. So glad you brought that up. So our industry, we have to get approved by the state. Okay. Now they don't have licensing yet. They're working on a home inspector bill right now in Harrisburg.
They're going to screw up your business.
Yes. However, basically what the law says is we have to be part of an organization. So there's two organizations. One that's called ASHI, American Society of Home Inspector, and INTERNACHI. And there's a big difference between the two. So if you're a member of either of those, you're in Pennsylvania, you're allowed to do a home inspection. So we are part of ASHI. And ASHI is way better, in my opinion, because of the requirements to get in. ASHI, you have to pass a test. Okay. So you need training and passing the test. On top of that, you need what they call ride-alongs. You have to go on mentored inspections from a certified inspector. And that's where you actually learn how to do a home inspection. INTERNACHI does not have any of that kind of requirements. Literally, you could walk up to them and pass the test, and then you're certified to do a Pennsylvania inspection. That's that simple. And part of the law is you have to carry insurance, but most people carry insurance. I would hope so. Okay. Yeah. But so to answer your question, ASHI, you got to go on 100 mentored inspections, pass the exams, and then we do have continuing education. We have 16 credit hours every year that we have to do. So I'm actually part of our local ASHI chapter. It's called Keystone ASHI. I just gave up treasurer. I was treasurer for 8 years, so I'm out of service for that. So I'm enjoying some time off now. No, but we meet once a month at the DoubleTree across from the Santander, first Monday of every month. So we're always in, and we're bringing in plumbers, roofers. We're learning all this new stuff because everything's changing all the time. I mean, so we have to do the continuing education. It's actually a difficult business to get into because you got to find someone to do the mentored inspections. And it's difficult to, provide 100 mentored inspections.
Especially right now.
Exactly, right now. And a little bit of it is you don't want to train your competition, okay? So typically you have to go out of the county, out of the area to get, you train someone that's going to go do them out in Pittsburgh or something because you don't really want to train your enemies. But that's the nice thing about the Keystone ASHI group. We're, local chapter. We have like 7 or 8 counties. So you'll find somebody. And so we want to help people. That's what it's about. You want the business to thrive. So yeah, good question.
When you use a software for your inspection reports, which one is it?
So we use what's called 3D inspection report writing. There's a whole bunch out there. Spectora. So it's a good question about reports. Everyone's are a little bit different, but the underlying theme is we were trying to find what they call a material defect. something that is unsafe or could cost a significant, value to the home. So you'll see in our reports, we go through each room, each system one at a time with pictures and everything included. Throughout there is a bunch of what we consider maintenance items, caulk here, paint there, stuff like that. At the end is what we call summary deficiencies. That's the stuff that's flat out broken or unsafe. And that's the list most people focus on to go back to the seller, ask them fix things, money for you to fix them later on all over again. Now, like I said, throughout that report is a bunch of what we consider maintenance items. Everything is negotiable. You can ask them to do every little thing on our list. They could say no, but you can ask. But what you'll see from us at the end is the big summary, and that tells you kind of the bigger things to focus on. So we try to help guide you to guide the buyers. But if they, we certainly see a lot of buyers where they have an issue with the ceiling tile for whatever reason, and negotiate the ceiling tile. Some people just have a hang up and you want to try to, cater to their needs.
Do you provide any type of warranties based on your inspections?
No. So no guarantees, no warranties. All we can do is a visual inspection of the day of the inspection. Things will change the next week. Yeah. Unfortunately, it happens. We'll do an inspection and stuff can break even before closing. So we just can't do any kind of warranty.
So do you have any add-ons to your inspection process of any kind?
I'm not sure what some guys offer like the warranties. You can pay for those. We do not offer any. No. But so that is something that we do suggest adding when air conditioning. You can't test it in the winter. So you have no idea if it works or not. Okay. And then especially if you're sitting there with an older system, they normally last around 15 years. If you have an AC that's dated 15, 20 years old and I can't test it, how do you protect yourself?
And you can't test it because it's below 55 degrees.
Right? Correct. So, you're sitting there with your buyer going, come spring, you fire this up, what happens? So sometimes you can ask the seller to buy a warranty. We've seen that quite a bit.
I had it was a heater motor went, or an air conditioning motor, that's what it was. And it went after the agreement, but before settlement.
Yep.
And the lady, because she had money, she called the professional, had him come in, replace the whole thing, even got him like 2-year warranty on the thing. And we went to settlement because the buyer was such a jerk. We never mentioned it. And then he found out like about 2 weeks after settlement, and then bitched because we replaced this, even though we
got a brand new AC.
He got a brand new warranty, and he's still complaining. And that just tells you the kind of guy he is.
Oh yeah.
I could write a book about that guy.
Cost, what's your typical cost for inspections for 2,500 square feet?
Yeah, so we're square footage based. So everything's on our website. You can see every, termite radon, all that packages and things. We baseline start at 350 up to 1,500 square feet, and every 500 square feet goes up $50.
Age of home?
Anything over 100 years old is a $25 additional fee. Multi-units, again, additional fees per unit. What else? Those are kind of the home inspection ones. Like I said, we do termites. We'll do discounts on radons and things if we're doing them with the inspection. So those kind of vary, but yeah, we do multiple water tests. So the bacteria as well as FHA, we can do the FHA. So we do a lot of FHA, VA, water and termites. Those are their big, demands. They require those. So we do a ton of that.
Do you see a lot of termite damage around here?
Yeah, we do. I mean, a lot is relative. I don't know. I'd say 30% of homes have termites. So most of those have been fixed. A lot of people are aware of the situation. Not all, but yeah, we see that.
So to maybe rephrase, you find a lot of active termite as a result of your inspection?
Not a ton. Okay. So the trick with the termites, a couple of years back now, they changed out the report. So that's all mandated through the state or through the agriculture. But anyway, if we see termites or evidence of termites, they no longer are asking if it's active or inactive. They want to know was it treated and is there a warranty in place? If there's no warranty in place, they say they can come back and they're going to ask you to retreat it. So that's more what we're looking for rather than an activity. Obviously, you want to know if it's active or not. What we do and the best way to know, termites, they build mud tunnels, okay? And if you were to break or scrape parts off, within 24 hours, an active colony would repair them. Okay, so again, you're not necessarily there the next day and checking, but it's something that's one little thing you can see. So if you see a bunch of broken tubes, probably inactive. Okay, so that's one way of determining activity. Yeah.
I guess to piggyback on that question, what about radon? How, do you see it in particular areas versus, or is it very sporadic?
Well, it's sporadic, but it's super heavy here. We sit on what they call the Reading prong. I'd say at least 60% of the homes fail to test. Now, again, that varies. We've done townhomes. This one has it. That one doesn't. This one has it. Okay. It has to do with the rock formation. It comes from underground, eventually follows the rocks. That blueprint, if that comes out under the house, you have it. If it's out in the yard, you don't. But we just sit in a higher. Berks County, believe it or not, is the second highest county in the country. There's one in Colorado that's higher, but we just are in a hotbed of radon.
What about Lancaster?
They have quite a bit as well. Yeah, it kind of follows the mountain chains a little bit. I mean, it's not exact science, but we just certainly have.
Just real quick, walkways, driveways, curbing, is that included in the inspection then too?
Correct. Yes, it is. So, we start outside. We're looking at curbs, sidewalks. That is the homeowner's responsibility. Now, the township can make you replace it, if, especially why I'm missing. You get some of those really big, tall tripping hazards. So we're looking at that. Now, we don't get into property lines, that kind of stuff. We're looking at what can affect the house as far as the drainage. Are the trees too close to the house? Things like that. Now, we don't get into, we can do outbuildings. We charge extra fees, but you get some farm properties where they got like 30 buildings. No. So we just do an attached or one garage and the house. So if it's a detached garage, that counts, and then we'll do the house. But we're generally not, like you said, walking property lines, getting into like the fences all outside and things like that, more pertaining to the house. But driveways, sidewalks, curbs, that's that.
Safety hazard stuff.
Correct. Exactly.
That actually saved a really tough deal for me.
Okay, good.
A couple of years back, I sold a property up in Virginville, right on Main Street.
Okay.
And we were going PHFA, and it had a detached garage.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we had a termite, the house was clean, but they suspected the garage.
Yeah.
And because of the potential damage, they wanted a structural search. And it was a very difficult deal, and it was almost ready to fall apart. And it was very tense.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, your dad came out that afternoon and gave it a structural search. And what he actually determined was that the garage was built from recycled lumber, and suspected that termite damage was there before it was even built.
Yeah, we've seen that.
But he stayed.
Good.
That was
good to hear. Yeah. So to piggyback off of that, termites can be a pain in the neck with the banks. And so again, the way we have to fill out the form, they want us, there's a check mark called damage. If you check damage, the bank's going to require structural cert. So now our industry is getting better at checking the damage. What does damage mean? It means different things to different people, right? Is the wood damaged, or is the wood, disintegrated and it's a problem, right? Is there a little piece that's broken, or is it actually compromised the integrity of it? So it's a judgment call on the inspector's ends. And most guys nowadays we're a little more lenient on like checking quote damage because we know they're gonna come back with a structural cert every single time. So, yeah. Another hiccup nowadays with termites is FHA, VA, they require all outbuildings to be inspected. Sheds, everything. We literally got a call back because they made us go back and do a Rubbermaid plastic shed. They said it's a shed. I said it's made of plastic. And they're like, it's an outbuilding. Okay, so we went back out. But that's how crazy they are. Some of these VA and things. It
I
is.
lost a deal with a shed that they wanted the roof replaced and they had a $0 value for the shed.
Uh-huh.
And we kept arguing, it has no value. Why do you insist we put a new roof on it? Anyway, the whole deal fell apart at that point at the end. It wasn't around here, it was up in the Poconos, but FHA can be tough.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. So, yeah, unfortunately, you're at the mercy of the banks. That's the nice thing about the inspector and inspections. I have no authority. I can't make anybody do anything. Our whole process is an education. We're there with the buyers. We encourage the buyers always to be there. We like when the realtors are there. They don't have to be, but we walk through and we're pointing out the good and the bad. So we're not just, a lot of people get our report and like, oh, look at this inspector, he trashed the house. Like, I had a lot of good things to say. It looks nasty on paper. Like you said, that electrical section, we got 30 things, but you're talking about $10 of cover plates to put on instead of, a real problem. Okay. So it's an educational process. We're going to show them how the house works, where your shutoff valves are, electrical, where you can upgrade, where there's, possibilities to do good in this house. So, like I said, it's communication on our end. When we see a problem, how we react to it. If we're like, oh my goodness, this house is gonna fall down, right? You just killed the deal. We get that. That's not why we're there. We're not there to kill the deal. We're there to tell you what the house looks like today. Okay, it's gonna change. We know that, but here's what you can expect. This needs repair now. This needs to repair shortly. Okay, and keep an eye out that you want to make an improvement. Here's a good improvement. There's safety upgrades and things like that available.
Your inspection is based on today's code, not the day it was built.
Correct. So code is a 4-letter word in our industry. Okay. We don't do quote unquote code inspections. Okay. We're not code certified because it changes. Every municipality is different. They can adopt and enforce whatever they want. So we stay away from that word. We go to again, ASHI standards, and it's on when the house was built. So when the house was built, this was an acceptable practice. You didn't have, for example, the safety I-beams on a garage door, right? It was allowed back then. Nowadays, you couldn't do that. So we're trying to check ages of when things got updated and did they do it properly? Like, that's one of the GFCI things, okay? And actually into the arc fault breakers, we didn't really talk about them. Now, every house has to have arc fault breakers, which is another level of safety aside from ground fault. Yeah. So in 2002, it started with bedrooms. Every bedroom had to have that. In 2014, it's everything, all rooms, living rooms, dining rooms, family rooms. So it's evolved. And as you said, so if I have a 1990s house, I'm not requiring an arc fault, breakers. I will let them know in our report there's an updated safety feature if you so choose. This is what's available to you, but it's not required. Now, they put on an addition in 2019. Yeah, that's got to have the arc faults, the ground, all that modern stuff. So hopefully that answers your question on how we determine.
Anybody from Zimmerman have any additional questions for Jeff?
So I got,
Hearing none, one from Mike.
You said that you don't do the septic inspections anymore, but do you have people that do?
Yeah, so we do have names and numbers in our office for pretty much everything, but from contractors to inspectors, we can help guide you. Now, I'm sure the office has some recommendations as well. We got out of the septics mainly because of coordinating everything. There's a lot to a septic inspection. coordinating the pumper, the inspector. A lot of times the owner has to pay for the pumping. The owner needs to dig open the lids and prep. So there's a lot of communication. We just want to be out of that loop. So we're happy to provide you with names of inspectors, good inspectors. But you'll want to just let them do a lot of the legwork. Yeah.
Did you say that you do the well inspection too, or no?
What do you mean? But we do water testing. We also can offer a flow test on a well. How many gallons per minute type of deal. Make sure it's sufficient. That's what you mean by well. Yeah. Good question. Anything else?
Good job.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hearing no other questions? Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. He's got some cards here as well.
Send some of those over with Ashley or Angela next week, please.
Will do.
Thank you.
Stop